Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. One last little video talking about the live stream preemptively for next Sunday. I believe that's the 16th or 17th. I think it's actually the 17th. Where we're getting the OCG live stream where they're going to cover a bunch of different Yu-Gi-Oh! News stuff. I'm assuming there's going to be some Legacy of Destruction news, as well as probably maybe the final card for their Christmas set that comes out on the 23rd, and maybe a couple of other things in there as well as far as it pertains to the TCG at all. But today we need to talk about GOUKI, okay? In the announcement, they already announced which voice actors they have on. They have Professor Crowler, so I already did a video talking about Ancient Gear and what that could potentially mean if they got support in there. We'll keep an eye on that. But the other low-key one was not just the main guy who plays GOUKI in the anime, but there's like two other like backup guys. One of those backup guys is another voice actor they have coming on, so he's not like a super relevant character, but he is another character that plays GOUKI. So I can't ignore the possibility that they end up giving GOUKI another couple of cards here in Legacy of Destruction. So where does that leave us? We got to take a look at GOUKI, see where it's at. I do still think this archetype has some legs to it for sure. We just need the right kind of support here, and I have some good ideas here, I think, as it pertains to this archetype. So let's just get into it. Starting off with the monsters that actually are playable. It's one important thing to keep in mind. Almost all, probably like 90% of the GOUKI main deck monsters have the same second effect, where if they are sent from field to grave, they add any GOUKI card from deck to hand. Every single one of them. That actually makes already, by itself, makes this archetype playable. The problem is we don't have the best search targets, so that's what we'll get into here. And I'm going to highlight, I think the couple of main deck ones that I think are particularly interesting, because so many of them, their other effects are like almost irrelevant. They do not matter much when you're playing competitively. But a couple of them do have some bonus effects, and Super X is probably the best one overall. When it's normal summoned, it can special a GOUKI from hand. That means you get 2 in rotation to make a Link 2, and then boom, double searches, which is pretty strong by itself. Double searches on top of getting Tice sold is pretty damn strong. So that's definitely the first thing you have to look at. He's the best normal summon. Secondly, you have GOUKI Headbat. This one's kind of an extender. I don't like this card as an extender as much because you have to have another GOUKI monster in hand and on field. But it is one of the few ways to extend with a GOUKI monster past your normal summon. So that does actually come up in combos. Next up is Octostretch. He really only matters because he's level 1, and if you're going to play some sort of Isold package, you don't want to have to play a large number of equips, so being able to play like 1 or 2 equips and just 1 Octostretch, like he's the level 1, lowest level 1 that still floats, he's probably like the best one for that situation, which does matter, and those are really the only 3 main deck ones, aside from they have like 6 other names that all search when they hit the graveyard, but aside from those, these are the ones that have like actual extra utility. The best card in the archetype, straight up, is Rematch. This is the card you're like searching every time you're doing these searches off the GOUKI monsters. It targets 2 GOUKIs in grave with different levels and special summons them both. Really strong. A double monster reborn just gives you a ton of material on field. It is a hard once per turn, so a lot of times you end up searching one, then searching a bunch of GOUKIs, and then searching like a second one maybe for follow-up. But it is still a really strong card, and it's going to be a part of, no matter where this deck ends up, if it does get support, this is going to be a crucial card for most of your combo lines. And then you get to Extra Deck. That's literally it, and that's probably the biggest downside of this deck is, the spell and traps are so bad. They have, 1 or 2 field spells. They have some other spells. I just don't think they're good enough. But we'll talk about that in just a second here. So getting into the Extra Deck, you have a couple of interesting cards here. All Link 2 through Link 4, I think. You have something like Heal Ogre, which technically can negate the effect of a monster it points to, which is kind of funny, because it points up. So if anybody plays an archetype with a Link monster that points up, you can summon this pointing to it, and it actually does counter that card pretty well, which is kind of cool. So not a crazy card, but it's a Link 2, so potentially linking to GOUKI's off for this card is pretty strong. You also have another Link 2 in Jet Ogre. He can target a GOUKI you control, destroy it, and then change all monsters on the field to attack. And then if this card is sent from field to grave, you can make all GOUKIs you control gain 500. So nothing crazy, but forces everything into attack. GOUKIs tend to have really high attack, so you're able to push for big damage. it's fine. This is another one that's just kind of like, it's a name for Link 2. Blade Ogre, this guy basically just lets you attack multiple times, but he contribute. The cool thing about him particularly is that he contribute any monster he points to, and again, he points up. So you could potentially like attack something, or you could tribute something he points to then make double attacks off of him, which is, you know, potentially like almost 6k by himself after removing a monster, which is not the worst thing in the world. That could have some utility. Did I do that right? Did not. Next up, you have GOUKI Master Ogre. This guy's actually pretty good because most of the boss monsters don't do much, but this guy is one of the few that do. So once returned as a quick effect, you can return to your hand any number of GOUKI monsters that this card points to, then target the same number of face-up cards your opponent controls, and they have their effects negated. I love that this is just face-up card because that makes this card work kind of like the Red Dragon Archfiend card that can just target even a spell or trap as it's trying to resolve in chain. So that way you can just like straight up negate the activation of a spell or trap, basically. It doesn't negate the activation, but it does negate the effect. It's very cool, and I like that it's a multiple as well, and it's by bouncing 2, which is really good because then like it's not like you're like, I guess sending GOUKI to grave isn't even that bad because they'd search, but like loading like a Suprex and something else in hand, if that's what you were able to set up, then you just already have like full combo next turn, is honestly kind of nice. And then he can attack all your opponents once each, which is pretty good for a 2800 body. That like also GOUKI loves to buff their own stuff, so like he could get even bigger. That's actually not too shabby at all. So yeah, I actually think this card's not too bad. The way the deck has worked so far in its existence, it hasn't had the means of like summoning this guy specifically because he requires GOUKIs only, while also putting other GOUKIs on underneath of him to like make it worth it. You could summon him technically, but you just weren't putting like the main deck GOUKIs under him consistently, and that's what kind of like hurt him before. But he could come up potentially depending on how support could go. And then Power Load Ogre, this is probably the one card in the extra deck that like actually has seen play somewhat regularly for this deck. One, he takes any 2+ warriors, so that means like even Isolde can be used to make him, which makes him way easier to make, whereas this guy needs GOUKIs only. And he gains the attack of all combined other link rating monsters on the field times 200, so he gets really, really big. He is completely unaffected by other card effects, so he is a towers strong. And you contribute a GOUKI link monster to target cards on the field up to its link rating and destroy them. That includes himself, so he can just tribute himself to pop up to 4 cards on the field, even if you don't need him as a towers anymore. And that already has like some pretty insane implications there. So one of the best cards in the deck for sure to keep an eye on from the extra deck, definitely. And the last one here is GOUKI Thunder Ogre. This card again takes only GOUKIs. Basically what this card does is it gives you an additional normal summon. So for a deck that is pretty normal summon reliant at this point in time, like I said, Headbat's really the only good one that like extends from hand, and even that has like awkward requirements to resolve it. I think this card could actually be pretty useful to pull GOUKIs out of the hand that haven't triggered yet, but you don't have a way to get them out. To just keep them in get them in rotation and get more searches going. So I can see this card actually being a pretty useful piece of certain combos in the deck at the end of the day. But yeah, those to me are like the most playable cards in the deck. So where do I end up on the deck? I'm definitely scared of it. This has always been a deck where I'm like, one card could break this archetype for sure. If you ask anybody who truly loves this archetype, they're going to say, give us a link 1. Because that means any normal summon GOUKI is like, not full combo, but it helps them do so much more, so much quicker. Because like, even if you can search, or like, there's like weird things you could do, but like, even if you could search off of like normal summon and linking off for rematch, it has to target 2 GOUKIs. So you can't just reborn the one in grave. But that being said, you know, that is still really good, especially if they gave it an effect that does anything. A link 1 would be probably pretty insane. I don't want that. That's not really what I'm looking for here. I'm actually looking for, more than anything, new spells and traps. I don't care, like they just need to be decent. I just want some defensive spells and traps, to be honest. Like, they could give us another extender or whatever, or like a consistency card, a Rhoda. Like whatever, that's fine. I think more than anything, we need like a defensive card. Some kind of card that like can do something while you control a GOUKI. You can set it and it's actually an interruption, because all the deck does right now, it's one of those combo decks that feels like it does a whole lot of nothing. It's not as good as Infernobles as being like a smooth warrior combo deck, and so it has to have some advantage. And right now, all you really do with the deck is like add a bunch of cards that end up just being like, I guess, follow-up, right? You're going to run through your rematch somewhat early. You're going to run through your headbat to like get to your combo, but you're going to end with another rematch in hand, whereas that search potentially could have been like an actual interruption card at that point. And so I don't want it to be like that. So I'm envisioning some sort of either quick play spell or some sort of trap card that's actually a decent interruption that you can get off of your turn 1 combo. And it puts less, I don't know, emphasis on this deck just being a generic tool to just like pump out anything. And I don't want them to really support it in that way. I would assume if this deck got supported, also end up with some sort of link support as well. Some of these guys are just like guys, you know, it wouldn't hurt to get like an actual interruption, or you know what, maybe part of it is just making like Master Ogre way easier to summon, because he's a decent interruption, we just don't have the ways to like facilitate him. So maybe part of it is just facilitating him ending on like Master Ogre and Power Load and maybe like 1 or 2 other main deck Goki, so that way you've got like the double negate plus the towers and then maybe like a spell or trap interruption that's searchable as well. Because it feels like this deck lost its identity for a while, especially when it was competitive, because their link monsters were not very good and they didn't even have Power Load at the time. They would just, it was just, this was an engine to put a bunch of bodies on field and that's it. And then you would make generic link boards. You made the topologic Bomber Dragon situation, or not Bomber, the other one. The one that hand rips. You just made the hand rip guy, you ripped a bunch of cards out of your opponent's hand, you extra linked them, and you moved on. And it just ended up abusing generic extra deck cards from there, and it just didn't feel like it worked the way it was ever designed to. So I want them to honestly give this archetype kind of like an actual identity. Give it some sort of its own interruption from main deck. Give it some kind of way to actually end on Master Ogre. And I wouldn't hate some extenders either. Like I said, Headbat feels like a pretty whack extender. So giving them their own kind of like just slightly better extenders, or maybe even like a 1-card combo, like a Goki normal summon that like actually, like this is a 2-card combo because it has to pull another card from hand. Maybe another normal summon that's like actually a good normal summon would be kind of spicy there. I don't know. Just something to keep in mind overall. But yeah, I think this deck is in a pretty decent set of place, and it's funny because they don't even have that many tools. Like, how many of these extract monsters for Goki have ever actually seen play? Like, just Power Load, and then maybe in specific cases Thunder, and then like that's it. And then you just played like this main deck core to just get a bunch of free searches. So I don't know. I just want some more meaningful searches that are somewhat fair, like nothing broken, but like just a decent interruption to give the deck a little more utility. And maybe help it play more mid-range than like trying to go wombo, combo, hand rip, end on 5 negates kind of thing. I think that could actually be like a pretty cool place for the deck overall. But that's just me. Let me know your thoughts down below, you know, on this archetype. If you're a big fan, let me know where you land on Goki. I'm really excited to see if or what comes from them, because I do think they're kind of scary already. But these are just my overall thoughts here. But I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching as always, guys. Throw me down in the comment section any ideas you have for this archetype or where you are on it, what you'd like to see if they do get support here in a week. And let's have a discussion. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.